one more review and Halloween.
Street.
What up, guys? Bobo here with BrassReel Brothers. Thanks for joining me for some more hot, fresh popcorn and another installment of Man, we are approaching the end. Tomorrow's Halloween. So for this Franchise Friday, to top it all off before we hit trick or treat tomorrow, I'm doing one that might be a little controversial. Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake.
You have nothing to worry about.
All right, if you're a horror fan, it's a 99.9% chance that you're a fan of Freddy. He's definitely a part of that whole 80s run of horror icons that were getting introduced. Not all of them introduced in the 80s, but definitely all really growing in popularity in the 80s. Leatherface, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and now Freddy Krueger. And we had some more along the way: Chucky, Candyman, Ghostface, Jigsaw. But those start bleeding in the 90s and 2000s. But you see what I'm saying? Horror icons. And I love the original. I love all the sequels. I love every one of them. Kind of like the Friday the 13th films. I like every one of them for their own reasons. Some of them are cheesy. Some of them are really dark. Some are new and inventive and almost don't feel like that genre for a minute. But I love them all. And of course, the idea that Wes Craven created something like Freddy, which stood aside from all the other killers that were pretty much grounded in reality for the most part. Obviously, the further the sequels went on, they were more like unstoppable rebel forces. But initially, they were grounded in reality. Freddy came to you in your dreams. I mean, as a kid, come on, what's more frightening than that? Can't go to sleep? But I can go on and on about the original. It's a staple in horror films. And like I said, most of you probably love it just as much as I do. But that's where this one comes in. It's sort of shook the boat a little bit. So it's done by Platinum Dunes, which they did the Texas Chainsaw remake, and they did the Friday the 13th remake and a few other remakes like The Hitcher, and they actually added an addition to the remake, a prequel to the remake called Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginnings. All those were good, especially Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because what they did with Platinum Dunes, which is Michael Bay's production company, but his money is the only thing that's really behind that. The two guys that are behind it are Brad Fuller and Andrew Forum. Those are the guys that are actually the passionate filmmakers of horror. Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake with Jessica Biel I thought was fantastic. What worked about that is they brought a little higher production value to this whole frightening story. So they took something that looked very much like an indie film and made it a little more polished. And they did it well. It worked, just kind of retelling the story, but it worked well. The Friday the 13th remake worked so good because it was like a Friday the 13th free-for-all party. They really addressed every sequel. They paid homage to every sequel. They kind of harnessed the best elements of parts 1 through 4, put them all into one story, and just kind of gave you this ball of Friday the 13th and added some new cool stuff to it. To me, that's why that worked. That movie actually gets better every time I watch it. This one, while I do like this film a lot, I can see why it didn't work and it didn't catch on right away. One thing right off the bat, they straight up just tried to remake the original. I mean, sometimes almost scene by scene, not doing it shot by shot like Gus Van Sant did with the Psycho remake. Oh God! This one pretty much is kind of like taking this old screenplay, revamping it for modern times, adding a little bit of a modern touch to it. But other than that, it is a pretty much straightforward remake. There are a couple of things they do with Freddy's origin that I like, and I'll get to that in a second. But for the most part, it is just a rehash of the first film. The reason that worked for Texas Chainsaw Massacre is because the original one was so guerrilla style and so independent that the look of it was so gritty, and they made a little bit of a polished film with the remake. The original Nightmare on Elm Street looks fantastic. There was nothing really to polish up except for the fact that the original was made in the 80s and this one was made in the 2000s. But it already looked fantastic. In my opinion, that's why this one didn't really take off and it wasn't really well received, because there really was no originality to it. But the look of it was really great. I did think it did look good. It brought a little scarier tone to Freddy, but I think one of the reasons I wasn't disappointed is I knew what I was kind of getting into when I was walking in this movie. I was like, oh, it's Platinum Dunes. I see the way they do. I see what their approach is on remakes. So when I saw this, nothing was really disappointing me. There are some moments in the middle where it kind of drags on. It gets a little bit too much of a detective story of them trying to figure out stuff about Freddy. They could have wrapped that up a little tighter. But Jackie Earle Haley, I think, does a great job as Freddy Krueger. Obviously, Robert Englund is synonymous with that role. He made Freddy Krueger what it is. They did the makeup on top of Robert Englund's already existing facial structure. So like when you see Robert Englund in real life, you kind of actually see Freddy. When you see Jackie Earle Haley, you don't see Freddy. And when you see this new Freddy, you don't see Robert Englund either. You see their interpretation of Freddy, this burn victim, which they claim that's what they really were trying to make him look more like, a burn victim. That's kind of what they were going for in the original one, but this one they really tried to like go to true burn victim look. I think Jackie Earle Haley did a good job. He brought a little bit more anger to Freddy. Definitely was more of a revenge thing with Freddy. Obviously, when Robert Englund was playing him, it was a revenge too. There was a bit of a comedy in there. Even in the original one, when it wasn't supposed to be funny, there was like Freddy was having fun with it. And this one, there's a couple times you see where he's kind of smiling and saying, I have time to play with you and stuff like that, but it definitely seems more of an angry Freddy and more of a revenge-driven Freddy.
Look at me!
My main thing I really did like about this one though is the way that they kind of manipulated Freddy's origin in this. They explained why he would have the fedora on because he was like this caretaker slash gardener at this children's home. They do some flashbacks there with him before he was burned up and everything. And while they're showing those flashbacks, they kind of start to paint this picture that Freddy was a good guy and all these kids loved Freddy. And that the story of the parents in this community and neighborhood killing him because he was a pedophile may have been an accident and they messed up and he wasn't. And so maybe Freddy was wrongfully killed. And Nancy and her friends start doing some of this investigating and they're afraid, like, what if he's coming back in the dreams to haunt us now because we killed him wrongfully? But they quickly steer away from that and they make him evil, which I'm glad they did. I didn't want him to be innocent. I wanted him to be evil, but I like how they steered you the other way for a second. But no, he was evil, he was a pedophile, he was a child killer, and he comes back in your dreams. So the girl playing Nancy in this one, you had Heather Langenkamp playing Nancy in the original. Everybody loves her. If you were a kid in the 80s, you loved her. She was a crush. At least she was for me. Even in the 90s when I saw her Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I thought she was really hot. I just killed a freaking baby water bug crawling on my monitor. Anyways, I thought Heather Langenkamp did a great job as Nancy. And this one you have Rooney Mara playing her, which honestly, that is definitely one of the weakest links to this film. She kind of just seems like she's tired, like she doesn't want to be there. Like, I just signed on for this Freddy movie. I can't believe I did this stupid Freddy movie.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Kyle Gallner plays the male lead role in this, which is him and her, you're following them the entire film. He does a really good job. You can tell he's throwing his all into it. I like him as an actor. He's kind of one of those CW grown actors, but I still like him. He played the Flash in Smallville. But other than her sort of lazy approach to acting in this film, I really do enjoy watching it. I think the kills are really good in it. They're gory. They don't spare anything. The way they remake some of the specific kills, like her in the room that's upside down and she's like rolling on the roof, and then you get the slash down the chest. They did a really good job of that scene. I thought it was really good. A great tribute to the original one in the first film. My favorite kill though is when Kellen Lutz is at that diner in the opening scene. Man, it's just the way that it all goes down and then the girl that's watching it all happen. Oh man, it's pretty dope and it's a good way they start the movie off, and then you get this sort of slash and a smile of Freddy, and I kind of feel like that was sort of like a fan service to the old school fans, like, I'm back, bitches.
You're not real! I am now.
And they really do a good job at getting the dream sequences down in this. I mean, they're all creepy. They do that kind of old school boiler room look all the time that they had in the other Freddy movies. They actually kind of explain why you see that boiler room in the sequences in this movie. I thought it was a really well written film as far as the new additions to Freddy, but the entire approach from start to finish of the film being just kind of a rehash of the original, that was really the only disappointment, and Rooney Mara. Because I know Rooney Mara is a way better actress than she did in this. She seemed like she didn't care. But Jackie Earle Haley's great as Freddy. I like his rendition of Freddy. I like that we have the two. We've got Robert Englund and this one. It's kind of like the two Chuckies for the two Child's Play movies. I like them both because they're different. But society as a whole seems to be kind of 50-50 on this one. And I mean 50-50 like you either love it or hate it. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun to watch. Not going to say it's anything to the original because it's not. Mainly because it's just copying the original. But if you're a Freddy fan, it gives you more Freddy. So I like that. So Nightmare on Elm Street? Not the newest popcorn in the world, but it's still dreamy. And a lot of fun if you're a Freddy Krueger fan. Well guys, that's the last Franchise Friday to this Halloween season. It's kind of sad it's coming to an end, but I'm not gonna lie, I am exhausted. But it's not fully over. We've got the coup de grace for tomorrow night coming up. One of the best Halloween films of all time. And I know a lot of you agree. Trick or treat. We're gonna have a blast with that one, guys. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And that's tomorrow night for Halloween. Well, I love y'all with all my heart. Look for BrassReel Brothers on Facebook. Look for Bobby Williams on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, BrassReel Bobby at BrassReel. Please help us get to 200 subscribers by the end of the month. Hit it! And as always, make some hot, fresh popping corns. And check out this awesome Japanese Freddy shirt for part 3. Yeah!